if you were a scribe living in Jesus' day, and you had the opportunity to ask him any question at all, it's quite likely that you'd come up with this one. Lord, what is the greatest commandment? What's the first commandment? What's the most important commandment? Which one takes precedence? Which is the first commandment of all? In fact, it would have been surprising if Jesus had never been asked this question. We might have expected him to respond with what we know of as the first commandment. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's probably what I would have guessed he would have said. Or perhaps, thou shalt not kill. Of all the commandments, this one's the most important. Thou shalt not kill. Or honor thy father and thy mother. But instead, Jesus turned to a command that is not even included in the Decalogue, that is, in the 10 Commandments, but one which was very dear to the Jews, recited every morning, every evening. Actually, they kept it in written form, in little pouches or little boxes that they kept tied to their arms or to their foreheads. And this was what it said: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. It's crystal clear from God's Word that it's His will that we should love Him. Consider these passages from the book of the Bible that speaks more about our love for God than any other book. The 5th book of the Bible, Deuteronomy. Your fathers went down to Egypt with 70 persons, and now the Lord your God has made you as the stars of heaven in multitude. Therefore, you shall love the Lord your God and keep His charge, His statutes, His judgments, and His commandments always. Deuteronomy 10. And it shall be that if you earnestly obey my commandments, which I command you today, to love the Lord your God and serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will give you the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your grain, your new wine, and your oil. Deuteronomy 11. If you carefully keep all these commandments, which I command you to do, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all His ways, and to hold fast to Him, then the Lord will drive out all these nations before you, and you will dispossess greater and mightier nations than yourselves. Again, Deuteronomy 11. And now, Israel, what does the Lord require of you but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all His ways, and to love Him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and to keep the commandments which I command you today. Author Leon Morris points out that 27 times in the Old Testament we read commands or exhortations to love God. 27 times. We're commanded or exhorted to love God. It's a clear evidence of our morally degenerate state that this command should ever be thought to be unreasonable by us. The natural man asks, well, why should I love God? What has He ever done for me? Well, apart from creating you by His gracious hand, placing you in this beautiful world of His making, giving you the ability to see and to hear and to touch and to speak, to taste, the mobility to move about, the strength to labor, your daily food, a mind to reason with, apart from being the fount from which has sprung every pleasing experience you've ever had, every enjoyable evening, every pleasant sound or comforting thought, apart from upholding you moment by His grace, and through His inexhaustible power, and giving you 1,000 other gracious gifts, you may say that He has done little for you. But it would still be a foolish thing to say. Now, we spoke a little bit about this in our series on worship some years ago, but I think it's worth thinking about again. Granting the fact that our Creator deserves our adoration, it may strike you nonetheless as odd or inappropriate for God to consistently or frequently in Scripture exhort us to love Him and to glorify Him. I presume you want to be loved by your family and your friends. But you don't continually exhort them to love you, do you? You don't sign your greeting cards, "Love me." You don't end every phone conversation with, "Don't forget to love me. Bye-bye." Why not? Well, one reason is it would be counterproductive. Your family and friends would soon grow tired of it. There he goes again. He wants me to love him. And they would be willing, to pay a little extra for caller ID. But why would it be so counterproductive for us to do that with one another? Because to focus the attention of others on loving you, or let's put it this way, to focus the attention of others on loving me, reeks of pride and vanity, self-centeredness, insecurity. And yet, continually in God's Word, He exhorts us, reminds us, encourages us to love Him, to worship Him, to adore Him. And so the obvious question is, why is it right for Him to do what we all realize would be wrong for us to do? Well, the dilemma is resolved when we consider that since God is the only being who is infinitely pure, infinitely righteous, infinitely loving, infinitely just, infinitely merciful, since He is the one glorious being in the universe, it's right for us to love Him supremely, and wrong for us to fail to do so. Since God desires what is best for us, you see, He must exhort us to do what is supremely good. Each of us will, in fact, love someone or something supremely. Someone or something will take the supreme place in our hearts. That's the way we're made. It could be a girl, or a guy, or a child, or a job, a sport, a hobby, a business, a dream, an ambition. But whoever that person is, or whatever that thing is, if it is not the supreme good, then it is therefore by definition an idol. If the object of our greatest love is not the Lord Himself, then we are idolaters. John Piper writes, "God must love and delight in His own beauty and perfection above all things." This is why the manifestation of God's glory is of paramount importance, taking precedence even over what we think of as in our best interests. How many times have you heard people say, well, if God really loved us, why does He allow war and death and sickness, and why do terrible things happen? Because God has a plan, and His glory is being manifested through all these things, ultimately. And His glory takes precedence over even what we think is best for us. The Bible says all things were created by Him and for Him. Now, we don't have all that much trouble with the by Him part. That's what we were talking about this week in Bible school. All things were created by Him. Every fish, every creature, every odd animal that He made. It's the for Him part that we seem to have trouble with. All things were created by Him and for Him. God's ultimate goal, therefore, Piper again, is to preserve and display His infinite and awesome greatness and worth. That is, His glory. God has many other goals in what He does, but none of them is more ultimate than this. They are all subordinate goals. God's overwhelming passion is to exalt the value of His glory. To that end, He seeks to display it, to oppose those who belittle it, and to vindicate it, His glory, from all contempt. It is clearly the uppermost reality in His affections. He loves His glory infinitely. Piper goes on, this is the same thing as saying He loves Himself infinitely, or He Himself is uppermost in His affections, in His own affections. God would be unrighteous, just as we would, if He valued anything more than what is supremely valuable. If He did not take infinite delight in the worth of His own glory, He would be unrighteous. And so God exhorts us, even commands us to love and adore Him, because He is, above all others, worthy of our love and adoration. But another question may come to mind at this point. Granted that God is supremely good and thus worthy of our love, can such love really be commanded? We commonly use the term love, of course, in reference to an automatic, uncontrolled emotion. In the view of contemporary Western culture, love is something as you know, that you fall into. So a command to love sounds foreign to our ears. We view love as something either drawn from us by the loveliness or lovableness of the object of our affection, or else as something that's based on the natural relationship between the two parties, such as the love of a mother for a child, or of a child for her mother. But such love springs from us. It does not respond to command. And yet, this is what we are considering here, a commandment of God. In fact, Jesus said, the greatest commandment. He was asked, what is or which is the great commandment? Of all the commandments God has given us, which one is foremost? Which one is primary? Which one takes precedence? It's a commandment. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. We're commanded to do it. Now, the Greek verb that Mark used to convey what Jesus said is agapao. It's used in the New Testament to describe God's attitude toward His Son, God's attitude toward mankind in general, and toward His elect in particular. And it's used to convey His will as to how we are to feel and act towards one another. Agapao love, according to Greek scholar W.E. Vine, is, quote, not an impulse from the feelings. It does not always run with the natural inclinations, nor does it spend itself only upon those for whom some affinity is discovered. In other words, I get along with this guy. I like this guy. He's my friend. It's not that. Love seeks the welfare of all. It works no ill to any. As used of God, it expresses the deep and constant love and interest of a perfect being towards entirely unworthy objects, producing and fostering a reverential love in them towards the giver, and a desire to help others to seek the giver. You may remember that the other New Testament verb translated into English as love is phileo, and it's distinguished from agapao love in this, that phileo more nearly represents tender affection. Phileo, then, is never used in a command to men to love God. It has a slightly different connotation. So a convenient pastoral response to the question, how can God command us to love Him, would be, well, the kind of love God is asking for is not primarily a feeling, it's a doing. It's doing things to please another, putting the other person first, sacrificing oneself for another. It's loving service that springs from a commitment to somebody, which is why the Lord can command husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. That's agapao. But if we distill agape love down to just actions, apart from all emotion, if we make it all mind and no heart, then, we might as well just drop the facade and declare ourselves to be Pharisees. Right? Let's just drop the facade and call ourselves Pharisees. We love God, but not with any real emotion, not with any heart, not with any feelings. It's just stuff that we do for Him because we should do it. If agape love is only doing without regard to feeling, then what did the Apostle Paul mean when he said, though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, though I give my body to be burned and have not agape love, it profits me nothing. A husband, not a lot of husbands here, you surprise your wife with a cruise on your anniversary. Let's say your anniversary is coming up, it's a month or two away, and you want to let her know, you don't want to make it a complete surprise. She's got to do some packing. So you tell her, we're going to go on a cruise for your anniversary. I got it all lined up. And she says, oh, that's wonderful. She hugs you, and she's excited. And you say this, well, think nothing of it. I'm just doing my duty. It's just what I'm obligated to do. No more, no less. So, stand back. What kind of husband would do that? He'd better hope that the cruise deposit is refundable, because the forecast calls for rough sailing, icy waters. Remember, we're called to love the Lord with all our heart, with all our soul, not just with our mind, with all our heart and our soul and our strength. It certainly sounds like feeling and emotion is involved. Such love is, of course, ultimately a supernatural gift, isn't it? Such love, a genuine love in my heart for God, is a supernatural gift, because naturally I don't love Him. Selfish, depraved sinners do not naturally love God. We love pleasure, we love comfort, we love the world, we love the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. We love darkness. For us to truly love God, we must be changed within. The love of God must be shed abroad in our hearts, is the way Paul puts it in Romans 5:5. Moses told the people, "The Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, that you may live." Deuteronomy 30, verse 6. That's an interesting way of putting it. The Lord's going to circumcise your heart. He's going to cut away a little bit of flesh there so that you can really love Him. You know, take away, imagine, what do you call it, callous. Take away the callous from your heart so you can really love Him. 1 Corinthians 8, if anyone loves God, this man is known by Him. Right? If anyone loves God, what do you know about him? This man is known by God. God's in him. Paul prayed that the Lord would direct the hearts of believers, quote, into the love of God and into the steadfastness of Christ. So Paul's praying that God would direct the hearts of believers into the love of God. 2 Thessalonians 3:5. He said to Timothy, God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but of power and love. The spirit of love came from God. 2 Timothy 1:7. Jesus said to the Jews in John 8, if God were your Father, you would love me. The fact that you don't love me is evidence that God is not your Father. John 8:42. He said to unbelievers, I know you that you do not have the love of God in you. John 5:42. I know you. You don't have the love of God in you. So those who truly love God have been regenerated by God's Holy Spirit, which is what enables them to love Him. They've been born again. They've been born from above. They've been born anew. They're new creations. And because they are able to love God. But, although every one of us who's a believer has been born of God's Spirit, we've been given new natures, we love God, whom having not seen, you love. That love, as you may know, may be deeper in some Christians than in others. For example, Jesus indicated that those who are conscious of having been delivered from many sins tend to love Him more, right? They've been delivered, this great weight of sin was on them, and they've been delivered from it, and they tend to love Him more. They respond more in love, perhaps with more emotion. Others have trouble relating to their Heavenly Father because they had such trouble relating to their earthly father. If your earthly father was cold and distant and never supportive and never encouraging and never loving and gentle and kind to you, it's very difficult for you then to not project those things on your Heavenly Father. So, the love that we have in our hearts for God varies. It varies in individual Christians, and it varies in each of us over time. It ebbs and flows, you might say. Remember what Jesus said to the church in Ephesus? I have this against you, because you have left your first love. Revelation 2:4. You have left your first love. I think what he meant by that is they had departed from that zeal, that devotion that they had as new believers, as a brand new church, and the excitement and the love of the Word, and the love to hear it, and love to pray, and the zeal they had to evangelize. You've lost that. You've lost something. You've left your first love. The fire of their early witness has burned low. Sometimes our love wanes because we think God has failed us, right? I suppose if we were all going to be completely honest here, and if I took a brief little survey, asked you to raise your hand, how many of you have felt like God has let you down at some point in life, feel like He failed you? I suspect there are some here who feel that way. You see, we swallow the teaching that if we have sufficient faith in a loving God, He's not going to permit severe trouble or heartache to befall us. So when it comes, if we've adopted that teaching, if we swallowed that line, when severe heartache comes to us, it comes out of the blue. It's totally unexpected. I never thought that God would let that happen to my child. What? I know people have terrible things happen and car accidents, but to me, I thought God loved me. And doesn't the Bible say, there shall no evil happen to the just? Proverbs 12:21. There shall no evil happen to the just. That is, no grave trouble will overtake the righteous. Yeah, the Bible does say that. So what does that mean? Paul was shipwrecked, robbed, beaten, stoned, left for dead. Joseph sold into slavery by his brothers, his own brothers. Thrown into captivity because his master's wife lied about him. Falsely accused him. John the Baptist was beheaded by Herod. The disciple James was slain by one of Herod's descendants. And in our day, a young girl some of you knew and still know, 17 years old, dives into some water and is paralyzed from the shoulders down. And yet, we read in the Bible, there shall no evil happen to the just. So how do we reconcile these things? Paul said, the things which have happened unto me have fallen out rather unto the furtherance of the gospel. Joseph became prime minister of Egypt, was instrumental in saving thousands of lives, and in the providence of God of bringing his own people into Egypt. John the Baptist and James, the apostle, were suddenly ushered into the very presence of the Lord. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Johnny Erickson Tada watched God turn her tragic accident into an opportunity for a worldwide ministry to those with disabilities. Peggy Walker is over here somewhere. Where's Peggy? Peggy just got back from serving at Johnny's camp a couple weeks ago. God looks at the world through a wide-angle lens. He sees the big picture. We look at the world through the narrow lens of our own personal experiences, and many of them are painful. So I wonder, has your love for God soured over the years because of something that happened in your life? The loss of a loved one, loss of your health, breakup of a marriage. Of course you're going to have troubles in this world. Jesus said, in the world you shall have tribulation. The question is, how have you responded to it? John Peyton of Scotland was converted at the age of 17. He worked for years as a city missionary among the slum children of Glasgow. At the age of 32, he determined to reach the cannibals who were living in the New Hebrides in the South Pacific. He got married in March of 1858. He sailed for the New Hebrides in April with his new bride. 1 year later, his wife Mary died of a fever. 3 weeks later, their infant son also died. Peyton buried them himself, and he wrote in his journal, "But for Jesus, I'd have gone mad and died beside that lonely grave." But he didn't give up. And hundreds of those indigenous tribes eventually came to faith in Jesus Christ. But what about his wife, who died so young, before she could see any of that fruit? Here's what she said as she suffered with the illness that took her life. "I do not regret leaving home and friends. If I had it to do over, I would do it with more pleasure. Yes, with all my heart." Sometimes circumstances steal our love, but they don't have to. So let me ask you, have you lost your first love? Have you lost your first love? That first zeal you had when you came to faith. That first hunger for the Word. The first desire to hear it proclaimed. The first desire to fellowship with other Christians. The first desire to use your gifts in some way to reach others with the good news. Well, here's a simple test. Why do you worship? Why do you come here on Sunday mornings? Because we got air conditioning? Well, maybe today, but that's it. Or is it out of a sense of duty? I mean, is it out of a sense of, that would be a sense of duty. Is it out of a sense of duty? Why do you pray? Why do you read God's Word? Do you read God's Word? Why do you serve Him? Why do you use your gifts to serve Him? Is it just because you know you're supposed to? Have you lost that joy in his service. The church of Ephesus, they had the right doctrine, they were busy, they were active, but they had left their first love. Now, quickly, what can I do if I realize I don't love God as I should? I do have some control over it. There's a reason why God continually exhorts me to do it. There are steps that I can take to revive that love. I can meditate, for one thing, upon His glorious attributes. His faithfulness, His kindness, His grace, His mercy, His holiness, His justice. I can meditate upon who God is. I can meditate upon His glory in creation. Glenn quoted a moment ago, "O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth." I can meditate upon God's wonderful creation. We did this week in Bible school, talking to the children about some incredible creatures God made, like remember, kids, the wood frog that it actually freezes in the winter. It'll freeze. And it appears to be just a frozen frog. A frogsicle is the way they described it. And then in the spring, I guess, it thaws out again and just hops away. He's fine. We talked about these Arctic terns. Arctic terns let's start them up at the North Pole. They're flying around up there until it gets really cold, the depth of the winter. And guess what they do? They fly to the South Pole. I'd stop in Mexico or something, but they fly to the South Pole, and then they fly around there, and then they return. That's, I guess, why they call them terns. And they return to the North Pole. 50,000 miles a year they'll fly. 50,000 miles a year. We learned about little creatures that live inside of volcanoes. Thermophiles, I guess, the heat lovers. The little tiny creatures that are living inside of volcanoes. We never thought that could be possible. And all kinds of other weird things. What was that dung beetle that, what is it? It's a beetle that, yeah, Ben Hancock played the part of the dung beetle. It was, some say it's typecasting, but he would, these dung beetles would take this dung and they form it into little balls and they bury it in the earth. And so it not only removes the dung from the land, but it fertilizes the ground, and God created them to do this. I had no idea. Nobody checked with me on this. They're doing this all. God's got all sorts of creatures out there that we have no idea of. So meditate upon His majesty in creation. That's a way to deepen your love for God. Think about His blessings to you personally. Your home, your family, your friends, your church, your country. The way He's blessed you personally. And then, of course, think about His great love for you manifested at Calvary. How deep the Father's love for us. How vast beyond all measure. That He should give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. If God desires our love to the point that Jesus said the greatest commandment is the command to love Him with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, then it must bring Him pleasure when we sincerely express that love to Him. As Mary of Bethany did when she anointed Him with precious perfume. Now, how can we do that? Well, we can express our love to Him with our words. When you pray, don't just ask Him for things. Devote some time to adoration. Just, Lord, what a glorious God You are. What an incredible world You've made. How faithful You've been to me. And I think of, and then roll through those attributes in your mind. We praise Him with our words. We praise Him with our voices in song. When you come to church, sing those songs from your heart. Lift them up to God. Forget about the people around you. Singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. As you go about your day, allow your heart to soar up to God. And just to be thanking Him. God, thank You. Forgive me for complaining. Forgive me for murmuring. Help me to just be joyful in Your service. In everything, give thanks. This is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And then, of course, love should move us to service. Should cause us to want to invest our spiritual gifts to bless others. And our giving can be an expression of our love, of course, as it was for Mary of Bethany. Now, consider quickly consequences of our love. When our love for the Lord is strong and deep, then keeping His law becomes our delight. Did you catch the connection? We saw it several times in Deuteronomy. between keeping His law and love. Note the correlation. Love Him and keep His statutes. Love Him and obey Him. The Apostle Paul said, love is the fulfilling of the law. The Lord Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. So when I really love Him and I appreciate His attributes and who He is and what He's done, then I want to obey Him. I want to please Him. I'm grateful for all He's done in my life. And then when the love for the Lord is strong and deep, we want to share that love with others. He that loves not his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he has not seen? The love of God will give birth to a love for our brothers. What a joy, again, to see scores. I have no idea how many people we're helping in Bible school this year. We can't possibly know because there are other people that are praying for Bible school, and we never know about that. And people that visit their neighborhoods handing out flyers, we don't hear about all that. But we know there were tons of people coming here painting things and preparing lessons, and scores of people here during Bible School Week just helping out, just serving. Let me tell you, it's a real blessing to a pastor to see that. And it's a blessing, I guess, to all of us. It's just people who love the church to see the way people come together to reach kids with the gospel. Well, let me say this to believers. If you're disappointed at times, as I am, with my lack of love, my lukewarmness in love for God, here's a word of encouragement. If you're His child, that will not always be the case. One more quote from Piper. The main reward of the kingdom, the reward above all others and in all others, is that in the kingdom we will behold the glory of God and enjoy that glory with the very pleasure of God. One of the great frustrations of this life is that even when we are granted a glimpse of the glory of God, our capacities for pleasure are so small that we groan at the incongruity between the revelation of heaven and the response of our heart. Therefore, the great hope of all the holiest people is not only that they might see the glory of God, but that they might somehow be given a new strength to savor it with infinite satisfaction. Not the partial delights of this world, but if possible, with the very infinite delight of God Himself. I mean, just to be in the presence of God without sin, what a feeling that's going to be. But one more thing, if as you look at your heart, you detect no love for God, but rather an ambivalence or even a distaste, perhaps even a hatred, as Martin Luther said he had for God before his conversion, then you need to take a long drink of the wine of God's mercy and love. You need to see the love of Christ manifested on the cross. God sent not His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through Him might be saved. He that believes in Him is not condemned. You got to take a good long look at the love that God has manifested in sending us His Son. God so loved the world that He gave us His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. Have you experienced that? That love of God? Has it been shed abroad in your heart? Friend, if you know you're a sinner and you recognize it as vile in the eyes of a holy God, you can come to Him. God, forgive me. God, forgive me my sin. God, save me. I believe that Jesus died on that cross. I believe that He rose again from the dead. I believe He lived a sinless life to pay for my sins, to pay my debt. And then He bore my punishment in His own body upon that cross. I believe it, God. Forgive me and save me. Jesus said, he who believes in me has everlasting life. I am the light of the world. I'm the living bread. Won't you come to Him? You can come to Him today. Let's pray. Oh, Father, we acknowledge our lack of love for You at times. We get caught up in the things of this life. We get focused upon our own problems and needs. Lord, forgive us for that. Deepen our love for You. Deepen our zeal in Your service, our desire to obey You. Lord, we know that we're but sinners, and if we have everlasting life, it's by Your grace. So we thank You, we praise You. And we do pray now for anyone here still outside of Christ. Lord, please draw that soul to Jesus. Man or woman, boy or girl, give them no rest till they find their rest in You. We pray in Christ's name. Amen.